had the Nagas come together, we could have, the resolution that was made that day was for a common good, for the, And I think had the Nagas come together, which we did, but it was not the way we thought it would be, we would be in a different position today.
Dr. Wati, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and taking the time towards, agreeing to have this conversation. So first of all, I just wanted to ask you, being a prominent individual in our Naga society today, you have lived a very colorful life based on the many number of things that you have done throughout the years. So based on your experience and based on the observations that you have made up to today, are we as a society in a better position today based on the changes that have taken place over the years?
Well, first of all, thank you for your gracious words. I don't deserve that. Yeah, certainly. Every historical moment is an opportunity. And I can't say that today we are living in a more unfortunate era. It all depends on the people, and therefore what I'm trying to say is that it's the live moment of the Naga people right now should be time for looking ahead with optimism. And I think the young people are capable of doing that. Our future is in the hands of the young people like you. And you can't take the young people for granted. Today, the younger people are much more well-informed. They are smarter. And they're simply watching where this world is going to end. Therefore, instead of looking at the world, be active participants in trying to usher in the future for the Naga people.
So, what do you think were the differences between the current generation and the previous generation? What differences were there?
Well, I think the previous generation, my generation and the older generation, I would say we did not have that privilege, Now, when I say privilege, I'm talking about that the technology is connecting this young generation immediately to the everywhere, the east, the west. It's very fast, and in many ways it's finance also, and therefore I think that's the difference, and so the pace. Young people, your generation is much more active. This is not to say that we were not active, but we were in it from that you can't categorize the older generation the way you would be categorizing the younger generation today.
So, from your personal life, can you tell me something about your early life, growing up in Kohima in the early part of the 50s and the late 40s as well?
Late 40s, early 50s, yeah. I grew up in Kohima. Kohima was a very, very small, you won't even call it a town. It was very small. And my father came from Mukokchung. He was a teacher in the high school, government high school, and he appeared in an interview in the Assam government, and he was given the inspector of schools in Naga Hills, when Naga Hills was under Assam. So that's how we grew up in Kohima. As I said, Kohima was a very, very small town. Our family was the third our family to be settled in Kohima.
So, how has Kohima changed from your time growing up to today?
Tremendous change. With the coming of the statehood, division of labor became a way of life. People were able to travel distance. You saw others coming in. Basically, when I said division of labor, I'm talking from a sociological point of view. Then, because of this, the social changes that took place, and it's taking place. You see, so tremendous social change has accelerated in the last I would say 15 years, 20 years, and this is putting the Naga people with close to the others in the world. And this is all because of the technology, the modern technology.
Being the founder of Oriental Theological Seminary, ODS, how has the journey been so far for the Institute, according to your observations and your experiences?
Well, we have come a long way. When the institution started, the Nagaland Baptist Church Council wanted me to come. I did not say yes right away. It took me some time to think, and I was also very critical in a way. I remember telling the General Secretary, then it was Dr. Bonsing Kungyak. I told him, look, Dr. Bonsing, you don't need another theological college or a theological seminary in Nagaland. You have so many colleges. And I said, I'm happy where I'm teaching. I was teaching in Clark Theological College in Mokokchung. But NBCC kept on coming to me, asking me. So I said, look, if NBCC is considering to start a theological college in the higher level of learning, and I said, it has to be with a difference, a theological education with a difference. And if that is the case, I'll give it a try. So I was very intentional. I did not simply come here to begin a theological college just without a vision. And I think we've come a long way. I'm very thankful to God and to people who have responded. Now, the faculty members are all well qualified. Most of them are from the top universities around the world. And 90% of the faculty members were my students at one time.
So, what led to the naming of the institute as Oriental Theological Seminary?
Well, it was not my. The board members, I remember it was, we had people like Dr. Vikinu, the first board chairman, Reverend L. Bizo, Mr. Muli. Those were the pioneers. Most of them are Dr. Vikinu is still alive. The others have gone. It was. I have a feeling that the name was already decided before they even called me to take over. So it was no contest actually.
Did it have any connotation with the region in which it was based in? beginning with the word Oriental.
Right. Well, if you look at the word Oriental, it can also be quite negative. But we are not looking from that perspective. We are looking Oriental as it is. We are part of the Orient. So we even thought of changing at one point, but there's nothing to be defensive about that. We are happy with it.
So was it difficult in the early stages when you were just starting out the institute? Were there any difficulties along the way, like in the early stages?
Yeah, we had to see. If you look at the 1990s, you did not have JCP the way you have today. Hardly even bulldozers. Very difficult to get. So most of the work was done manually. Can you imagine that big campus? We did manually, cutting the jungle, making roads, building touch classrooms. We had to begin somehow. So bamboo, touch, those were the main materials for constructing an institution. So those were the difficulties. But we kept on working.
So what about with regard to running of the institute as well? Early starting classes?
Well, we had the first batch considered, we had 21 students. Then by the time they reached the third year, they ended with 16 students. Some dropped out along the way, some decided not to return back, so dropped out along the way, and ended with 16 students. And those 16 students are doing very well. Some are working as executive secretaries in their own local associations. The principal, the academic dean, the director of church and society right now were from the first batch, and there's another teacher teaching theology, Dr. Yimdi. They belong to the first batch.
So after that, you were running the institute, and at the same time, you were called upon to lead the Forum for Naga Reconciliation.
It consisted of Naga. Those days, you had only one big organization, Naga Hoho.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Then the NSF, Naga Students Federation, Naga Mothers. Then our UNC, United Naga Council from the south. Then the church, NBCC. You also had the revival, Nagaland Christian Revival Church, the Catholic associations of Nagaland. So all this came together, wanting to do something. Because we were in a very, very dark moment of our history. Almost every day, factional killings. Newspapers were full of stories of factional killings every day. For instance, Dimapur. After 4 or 5 o'clock, Dimapur was already, it was like a ghost town.
This was during the early to mid-2000s, right?
No.
Before that as well?
90s.
Okay, 90s.
The decade of the 90s. And also early part of the 2000. So Mukukchung, people were saying Mukukchung would be closed after after 2-3 o'clock. Kohima, the same thing. Children could not play. People were all they kept them to themselves. So the church, the Naga societies, organizations thought of doing something. So that's how it did not happen right away. Several meetings were held, and at the end, 39 organizations came together. This was in Hotel Jafu in Kohima. So this 39 organization decided to form the Forum for Naga Reconciliation. And it was there that they asked me if I would do it. I reluctantly accepted it. And I said, sure, I can convene them. They asked, actually the proposal was chairman of the Forum for Naga Reconciliation. So I remember telling the Naga Hoho and the church saying, let me not be the chairman, let me be the convener for some time. I will convene meetings for some time. And of course, that sometime was, this is about 15 years now.
So this was in the year 2007 or
2008, month of March. Yeah. So finally, in that meeting, I accepted it, and we started the work. So this was mandated by 39 organizations. That includes the church, NBCC, Revival, and the Catholic Church.
Was the government involved in any way?
Well, no. The government, of course, they were not. The government wasn't against. Rather, government was also happy that you have a body to work for reconciliation. So
after that, how did you lead the process along the way after forming of the FNR?
Many meetings were held. I moved a lot, traveled a lot, several times to Hebron, to Kehoe, to the Peace Camp, to Mon, to Tuensang. This was something that I had to do. I learned somewhere that in order to achieve anything, you can't just sit in your chair and make analysis. You have to move. So I started moving, meeting people, and the year 2008, month of April, the entire month, I think I was on the road, going to places, just taking the message of reconciliation. It was not easy. When going up to a particular group, they were very skeptical. As a matter of fact, they were suspicious of me, So you ended up being called like you were somebody's spokesperson, or you are someone's agent. So that's where I had to be persistent, consistently going up. And at last they said, "Well, okay, we'll give it a try." And when they said, "We'll give it a try," I had to call all the groups. In those days, there were 3 major groups. That's it. Not like today. 3 major: the NNC, 2 NSCN, the NSCN Isak Moiva, and the NSCN Kaplan. So those were the 3 major. When the meeting was organized, this was after taking permission from them, whether we should meet together. They said yes, but they were not willing to meet in Nagaland because they were all fearful because of the violence. Though they knew each other, that they were from a particular group, they would not meet. They were not open about it. So the idea of someone told me, is it possible that you can do this meeting outside? So I said, well, outside what, where? Delhi, Calcutta? They said, no, not, because you can't be talking Naga issue in Delhi among Nagas, you know. They said, well, outside, can you take us to like Thailand? So we ended up going to Chiang Mai.
This was in the year
2008, May 2008. So we formed in March of 2008, April, entire month I was moving around trying to convince our leaders. And finally they agreed. So in May we met in Chiang Mai. That also is quite interesting. I mean, one group did not want to fly together in the same airplane. That was how, you see, that was the level of fear and suspicion. Today, younger generation like you will not know that. But that was the level of fear and suspicion, not wanting to fly together. And then when we reached the Chiang Mai YMCA International Hotel, Christian young men YMCA, you know, good atmosphere, you know, peaceful. One group told me that you will not stay in the same floor with the other group. Same floor. So I had to talk to the manager of the hotel and say, can you put them in a different floor? And we did. So it was like that. So today we have come a long way, actually. We have come a long way. Very soon after the meeting, they were joking around, people from different camps. They were exchanging phone numbers, and they were moving around on the road, you know. And people came after long, you know, after many years perhaps, not spending night at home with wife and children. They were freely coming. See. So it really, the younger generation will not know, but we see the difference. And slowly, the town started to open up. You know, you would see signs of life even at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Of course, now it's different. It's much improved.
At the same time, there has been, in the recent past, there has been a slight uptick in the number of attempts, like infighting between the several factions which have their ceasefire camps here in Timor. So why do you think the situation is maybe starting to change in a negative manner?
Well, I don't think that there have been any confrontation or clash taking place in the, among the different political groups. You'll see pockets of conflict at times. It has always been there, you know, but I would attest to the fact that there has never been a factional clash.
On Naga Day, January 10, 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the Naga Day was held in that year by initiated by the FNR. Right? So the people's response during that time was good, but at the same time it was a bit underwhelming, to say the least. So why do you think that was the case during that time?
I think we have to blame ourselves. And when I say blame ourselves, it's the Naga people. You see, whenever we Nagas try to look for common ground, we become always suspicious of one another. So I guess that was the case. And we ended up losing ourselves. We could have, that could have defined certain things at that time. I believe our future could have been defined that time, but we lost the opportunity because of our own suspicion.
And also at the same time, what were the certain drawbacks during that moment when you were initiating that event, the Naga Day?
Well, first of all, the turnout for the Naga Day was not as expected. Okay, why? The question is why. I said we are very quick to suspect one another. That's our culture. It's within our Naga veins. Whenever something is done, it's not. They don't look at from the perspective of common belonging. We try to first look at who is doing this, who could it behind this, who are what could be the reason. So at the end, our suspicion dictates our decision. Had the Nagas come together, we could have, the resolution that was made that day was for a common good, for and I think had the Nagas come together, which we did, but it was not the way we thought it would be, we would be in a different position today. Our unique history would have been in a different level than what we are facing today, because we showed our own weakness to others and to the world. So we defeated ourselves.
So is the concept of Nagas without borders plausible at this current juncture?
Yeah. It is still possible. You see, there is an element of suspicion again, that the Nagas without borders is all about territory integration, political integration. What FNR did was, we knew the difficulty. Sure, who doesn't want to be integrated? Politically integrated, the entire Naga people will be. But there can also be a political model without that kind of a political integration. We can. We are not thinking outside of the box. We are not imaginative enough. Okay. So here, first of all, we wanted to tell the world that there are Nagas in Burma, in Manipur, Nagas in Manipur, Nagas in Assam, Nagas in Arunachal, Nagas in Nagaland, and Nagas in Burma. We are brothers, sisters. They are one of us. But because of the historical demarcation, the land, because of the arbitrary demarcation, we are divided. But that division should not divide us mentally. Okay. we can be stronger and say, hey, though I'm in Burma, I'm a Naga. Though I'm in the south, in Manipur, I'm a Naga. And the Nagas and Nagaland must also know their history well. That we are not only Nagas living, the Nagas living in Nagaland are not the only Nagas. This we have to, the Nagas and Nagaland must know. There are many other Nagas out there. As a matter of fact, there are more Naga tribes outside of the state of Nagaland. This is a fact, and the sooner the Nagas and Nagaland understand this, we'll be better off. So this was that kind of an dream, imagination that we had, that hey, let us not be dictated by the borders and say we are the only one. Without borders, Nagas are all over. Nagas are, in different places.
So people keep saying that the definition of a Naga being a Naga, what is a Naga, who can be considered as a Naga? The discussions keep coming back to that as well. Is it because there is no clear-cut definition on who can be considered as a Naga?
I think the question itself, who is a true Naga? In itself, that question itself is wrong. You see, I have advocated the theory that Naga is a construction. And Nagas, let us not be, ashamed of that. Naga is a construction. At some point, we were known by our tribes only. Ao, and there was a time when the Ao people did not know that there were other Nagas living in the Ngami area. So, but culturally, there are common link about us with among us, and so slowly this Naga constructionist approach gave the idea, the name Naga. So we are part of that. There are countries in the world out of construction, countries are formed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Therefore, Nagas, our Naga construction is something that we should continue to do it. You cannot undermine that process. Today, people try to undermine some, come in with that all thinking, with an intention to divide us and say they are not part of us. This is destroying our common belonging. I must also tell you this, that our generation and little older, you young people, we have taught you many wrong things. Personally, I want to apologize in front of the young people and say, forgive me. And I mean it very seriously. We have taught you wrong things. Our generation, our older generation, have taught you guys that they are not Nagas. Only these are Nagas. And we have created myth and told you a lot of things about others to make you hate them. And so today, younger people, it's already somewhat, I think it's very psychological. Collective unconscious is in the minds of the Naga people, and without even knowing, without even talking, we already have a priori perception, meaning we have a perception about a certain group of people and say, they are our enemy. They are not Nagas. They are somebody else. Who did that? Our generation taught you wrong things. Don't learn from us. You're much more smarter. You're much more well-informed. Take the right path. You should defy that kind of narrative. And I mean it, young people. Please, don't let us fool you. Shape the future. You take the future in your hand and move forward collectively. You must not allow older folks like us to destroy your generation. And I mean this from my heart. And I speak as an individual here.
For a society or for a community to come together in unison as a people, first there must be a common identity, a common history, and also a common culture. So do you think that this also exists for the Naga people as well?
Certainly. That part, without a doubt, yes, we do. I mean, when you look at our history, one unique thing about the Naga history is that the Simon Commission, the Declaration of Independence, and the plebiscite, these three, I mean, you have many, and I don't want to go into detail, but these three that we have, these are unique. In the Northeast, others are also unique. Mizos are unique. Métis are unique. Assamese are unique. We should not talk about our uniqueness at the expense of the others. That we have to understand. But there's that what we have, Assam doesn't have. What Assam has, Khasis don't have. What Meghalaya has, Mizoram doesn't have. We're all unique. Within that uniqueness of each state, ours is, you have to look at these three important things: Declaration of Independence, plebiscite, and the Simon Commission. To put in order, Simon Commission, Declaration of Independence, and the plebiscite. This is, in a way, those are our identity.
So, coming back to that point that you mentioned right now, like about the Simon Commission, and before that, usually when we study about the Naga history, one of the most important points that we begin with our history is with the Naga Labor Corps, which was sent to France in the First World War. But those Naga Labor Corps which went to France during that time was from the Naga Hills district at that time. So do you think that maybe that could be the reason why the Nagas of Nagaland are more, upfront about saying that, the other Nagas did not participate in the historical movement of the Nagas?
But that's not the only history, you see. In other words, that's just one among the many. Okay. And we must also understand that there are other Naga tribes who have also gone not from Naga Hills. Okay. They've gone from Manipur also. It's historical. So that's why I'm saying we have records of important events in the history of the Naga people. But what I'm saying is, of the many factors, many facts, I was just naming those three, and those three are one of the core foundation of our identity.
So, were these some of the points that you were mentioning previously you were saying that the previous generation had taught the current generation of Naga people the wrong kind of history. So is that part of the wrong kind of version of history?
No. When I say wrong, for instance, the recent creation, for their own benefit. We hear myth in our context that those people from the south are not Nagas. The Nagas are only, the real Nagas are in the state of Nagaland. You are saying yes. Okay. So that's your education. And I'm saying, I think we got it wrong. Hey, there are others. Unfortunately, they are not in the state of Nagaland. Unfortunately. Remember, this state was given by India. They did not include the others, meaning other brothers and sisters, to be part of the. Luckily, Tuinsang was included, Tuinsang area. Nefa was left out when the state was formed. Had Nefa had Nefa come in within the state, those in Arunachal will be here today as a Nagaland state. You see? So we have created in such a way that in our political pilgrimage, we have identified certain people as they are not Nagas. They should not be. I think let us get rid of that. The sooner we get rid of that, the better.
So what would you say to an individual, maybe a student who wants to learn more about the history of the Nagas, more beyond the given textbooks which are provided in schools and colleges? What would you suggest that he or she should go about learning about the true history of the Naga people?
It is, we have discussed this many a times with the NSF, and even among peers, some even 20, 25 years ago, that we should be. By the way, NSF also came up with Naga history, actually, a very small booklet. I remember Dr. Twisam Sisak, Rivan Vikino, VCR, and myself, we were in the committee, and it was done during the time of Vicky Ho So. He was one time a minister. He's an MLA now. He was the president of NSF. During his tenure, we wrote a small booklet also, and it's there in the record. This is something that we have to teach the Naga people. Unfortunately, our history is written by non-Nagas. Can you imagine? Nagas are reading history written by someone else. Nagas are reading history, and that history doesn't belong to us. It's high time. Young people, we should have a will, a political will to educate the young people with a clear view of with Naga history.
The thing with the current situation is that there is no strong political class to sway the Naga people in the right direction. Because in every given history of the people, of many different people, say the Vietnamese or the Chinese or the Japanese or the American, even the American movement for independence. One thing is they had a very strong political class to give out ideas for the people to understand. This is the common platform that we want to speak on. These are the issues that binds us together. So, do you think that maybe our political class, that strong educated political class, is missing in the Naga context today?
Possible. That could also be a factor. And all these are connected actually. Lack of knowledge of our history, and along with that, I will also say that taking the young people as part our history. Coming to the younger generation, say, we want you to come and be a part of it. Give us your advice. What do you think? That's then the other thing, the other part, or the other, I say parts, little parts, together. I also think of this is the missing dimension in our Naga. There are many people in Naga land. I'm not talking Nagaland from the perspective of the state of Nagaland, but Naga land. Naga land bigger than the state of Nagaland. There are people whose parents were born in this land. They may not necessarily be one of us Nagas. They are quote non-Nagas. They are from different community. They speak like us. They prefer. I know that whenever they go to their parents' state in India, they come back and say, Amito, tati to bhalna lage. I don't like to be there. I was brought up in this village, and they speak Nagamese better than us. The accent is also just like us. They are also part of us. We need them. And those who are listening, take this. You're part of us. We need you. You have to contribute. And your contribution is not to go against your own community. That's not the point. Contribution is how can we together, after all, you'll be living in this land. Okay, the way your mother, father lived and your grandfather lived, you'll continue to live. You have no land outside of this Naga land. Therefore, you are very much part of us. We need your help. We need your contribution. I'm not talking about money here. We need your, expertise. You are part of us. So we should be together. Please take that at heart.
With regard to the recent September 14th meeting, which was held with the members of FNR and the Naga political groups in Dimapur, can you tell me a little bit about what went on during the meeting and how did you came about in the final conclusion?
First of all, this meeting was something the political groups felt that they should. They can't. It was time that something ought to be done. I think you had the public talking about this. Conscientious people saying the need for coming together. And we have been talking about this for the last 4 or 5 years. And for reason best known to them, it was very difficult for them to come together. Very difficult. I don't want to dwell on why was the reason why it was difficult, but it was difficult. Situation did not permit. But I'm glad that they have realized. See, the sooner we come together, the better. So I'm happy that they decided to come, and they said, FNR, we want you to give it a try. We want you to facilitate a meeting the way you did before. So we did it. So we sat for 2 hours actually, an hour to be precise, an hour 50 minutes. Okay. It was. And I said in the meeting that, look, we are meeting after a long time. Today, the key people are here. You are official representative of the NNBG, 5 of them came. Official representative of the NSCN, 5 of them came. So I said, this kind of proceedings are nothing, it's nothing new to you. You have had it before. So I said, please, let us not talk with anger. We are not going to point fingers at anybody, okay? We are not going to dwell on the past, pointing, fingers at each other, talking about our mistakes, no. But how can we talk about moving ahead? Oh, they were very positive. So at the end, we said we should come up with a statement. I mean, this is after many years, and the public would want to know. And this will be a good message to the public also. And at the same time, writing something will also be a reminder to you that you have met together. So we came up with this idea of that statement. And we read it, they agreed upon, they called others, friends, and said, we have drafted, what do you think? At the end, finally, each group, NNBG, they consulted the higher-ups, their friends, the same thing with IM, and finally, they, without any coercion, without any force, decided. So it was surprisingly a very, very happy moment, actually.
But at the same time, is that only in paper, or are you confident that they will do it in actions?
Well, that's something that we'll have to pursue, and we will. And they are aware of it, that this is, there will be difficult times. Writing a statement, making a commitment is one thing, and how do you take that forward is another thing. And yet I can see that they are committed. After that, I have had calls from both, and they are very cautious about it and say, look, we have to do it well. How can we move forward? And this has to be very practical. Academically, we can talk about many things, but it requires, I think it requires substance, actually. And we have to, this is also a time when we have to understand others' difficulty. And also difficulty within or among us.